Chapter 171. Tisk. Vulcan clicked his tongue as he made his way back into the workshop after taking a round through the village. I guess there's no way the golden shard exists around here. Forging equipment with golden shard was like a dream for blacksmiths. Even if someone in the village had some at some point, they would have already used it to make something. What shall I do, then? Vulcan sighed as he looked at his workshop. I can't use something average for his sword. Raon was special as a swordsman, since he could freely use both fire and frost attributes. In order to amplify both energies, it was necessary to forge a sword with golden shard alone or combine two different metals and then use golden shard as a connector. Since that Runan girl said that she would give him the cold blood, there were enough metals to use, but the amount of golden shard was too insufficient. It's complicated. Because of his personality, he'd rather die than forge some lackluster blade by compromising. He was the type of person that needed to make the best swords, the ones that fit their wielders at all costs. Should I join an auction or something? Golden shard could possibly appear in the underground auction of the merchant city Camelun. I'm sorry for the boy, but it would be better to make a proper sword, even if it takes more time. He opened the workshop door while deciding that he would tell Raon to leave, then call him back once he acquired the golden shard. Vulcan frowned. Although the workshop should have been empty because he had locked the door, a tall, golden-haired man was standing inside. I don't know how you got inside, but we are closed right in. Gasp. Vulcan was about to tell him to leave, but he knelt with a bewildered expression on his face as soon as he saw the man's face. Greeting the destructive king of the north. He was so surprised that his voice was trembling. The man standing alone in the workshop was the master of the land, Glenn Zighart. It's been a while. Glenn nodded slightly, then a gentle energy emerged from Glenn and made him stand. Such excessive greetings aren't necessary. Thank you. Vulcan bowed. He had seen Glenn multiple times before, but he couldn't help being nervous whenever he met with him. I came to visit because I heard that you started wielding a hammer once again. I'm jealous, since you seem to have regained your youthful passion. Glenn's eyes shone as he stroked the steel pieces filling the table and walls. Your praise puts me to shame. I just remembered my true desire after getting so old. If you remembered your true desire, that's good enough. Something like age doesn't matter. Congratulations. Thank you. Vulcan bowed once again. Did he become even stronger? Glenn's nature itself had grown softer than before. It looked like he managed to transcend another wall. I can't even assess what level he's at anymore. Even though he'd witnessed countless powerhouses in his life, he still couldn't feel Glenn's level. He seemed to have reached the end of heaven, surpassing all the clouds. Since it's been so long, I came to have you take a look at my sword. Glenn offered him the black and red scabbard that was hanging around his waist. It was the heavenly tremor that Vulcan had personally forged, sword and scabbard alike. All right. Vulcan swallowed nervously, then drew the heavenly tremor. Kring. The jet-black blade looked like a piece of darkness, displaying its frightening sharpness. Its completion was nothing short of being the best in the continent. That sword was Vulcan's greatest masterpiece, the heavenly tremor. Vulcan swept over his own masterpiece with his eyes. You've overcome your distress. Glenn nodded, watching Vulcan examine the heavenly tremor. You are looking at the heavenly tremor with different eyes. I had that feeling as well. He used to be too ashamed to look straight into the heavenly tremor before, but he was now able to confront it, just like during his youth. How is it? It's perfect. Since the entire blade is made of golden shard, there's no damaged parts, either. Vulcan picked up some silk and slowly scrubbed the blade from bottom to top. The sword was nothing short of perfection, even when he looked at it again. Actually, the reason I managed to get over my distress was thanks to the Lord's grandson. Grandson? Raon. Despite suffering from coldness, that boy visited the charcoal kiln every day and endured the cruel heat. He didn't yield in front of heat that even blacksmiths wouldn't be able to endure, despite spending their entire lives with a furnace. Vulcan smiled slightly while thinking about the small Raon. From seeing that boy's passion and efforts, I remembered my past self and the objective I had. I managed to overcome my distress because of him. Since I've witnessed countless swordsmen, I can say this for certain, that boy will reach a high place. We won't know until that happens. Glenn replied coldly, as if he weren't interested, but it was a bit strange. The corners of his mouth, which had remained low so far, twitched slightly. I never thought he would make that expression. It was Vulcan's first time seeing Glenn's mouth curving into a slight smile, as Glenn's face had always been as immobile as steel. It's finished. Once Vulcan finished wiping the heavenly tremor, he put it back into its scabbard and returned it to Glenn. Thank you. Glenn buckled it around his waist. All he did was put it on, but he looked so elegant that Vulcan couldn't take his eyes off him. I shall make the payment, then. And no. I wouldn't dare ask for payment. Vulcan said no payment was needed, quickly shaking his hand. Don't make me into a shameless person. Glenn drew a line in the air with his finger and the space was severed with a golden light. He put his hand in there, taking out a wooden box that was slightly bigger than his hand. This is... I don't need this, so please accept it. Thank you. Vulcan bowed gratefully and accepted the box. It was unexpectedly heavy. Can I see what's inside? Sure. Then... Gasp. Vulcan's hands trembled violently, even more surprised than when he had seen Glenn. Golden shard. The box contained a piece of golden shard, one that was even bigger than the one he had. Why are you? Even though he currently needed it, he couldn't accept such a precious item as repayment for just checking the sword. I told you earlier, I don't need it. Ha! Vulcan caught his breath while looking at the golden shard. I wouldn't have accepted it normally, but I actually need it for something right now. You needed it for something? It's nice, since I needed some golden shard to forge Raon's sword. Since Raon should be returning soon, this should be gifted to him as the head's present. I just picked it up along the way. Glenn replied bluntly. Picked it up along the way? Vulcan felt like something had gone wrong with his ears. What? I just picked it up along the way, so I don't want to boast about it. No, what does? I picked it up along the way. Even then. I said, I picked it up along the way. Glenn frowned for the first time. Vulcan finally understood that he was telling him not to tell Raon about Glenn giving him the golden shard. I see. Then, I'll keep it anonymous. Take this as well. Glenn gave him another small box. What is this now? It's a small elixir that revitalizes the body. It's easy to take, you can just swallow it. I can't accept something like this. Vulcan tried to return the wooden box, but Glenn was already outside the workshop. See you again later. He simply waved his hand and disappeared from the spot like an illusion. Ha! Vulcan gasped, looking at the golden shard and elixir in his hand. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Qua! The red dragon turtle roared and stomped on the ground. The mountain trembled and the wall of raging fire that was surging up from the ground spread out into the surrounding area. Whir! Raon struck out with his sword in a cross-shaped strike to sever the flames that extended towards him, gaining visibility. It's pretty hot. The heat was intense enough to affect him despite his fire resistance. It wasn't the power of any red dragon turtle that he knew of. It's obvious. Why are you so surprised? Wrath scornfully clicked his tongue. The fact that the geothermal heat has been abnormally low so far signifies that the turtle has been absorbing the heat with its snout to the ground. Is that even possible? His body would normally explode from containing too much heat, but he managed to overcome that and evolved. He is pretty much a low-rank mystical creature now. Low-rank mystical creature. Since even your sword isn't going to work against that turtle's body, good luck fighting it. The way Wrath was giggling while his head protruded from the bracelet looked so hateful. Let's see if it works or not. Raon gathered the 10,000 flames cultivation and dashed towards the red dragon turtle. Qua! The red dragon turtle was probably enraged at having its meal disturbed. It opened its long snout, a crimson flame bursting from its bottomless pit of a throat. It was flame breath. Whoosh! Although Raon could have easily endured it if it had been an ordinary red dragon turtle's breath, the heat coming from that monster's breath was so intense that it was difficult to breathe. Huff! Raon stomped the ground and thrust his sword. The energy from the 10,000 flames cultivation imbued in his blade rotated in a spiral to form into a crimson saw blade. It was the 10 flames, revolving sky. Bomb! A huge explosion occurred between Raon and the red dragon turtle, creating a whirlwind of heat. Tisk! Raon briefly clicked his tongue. Its tremendous power matched his full power revolving sky. But it's sloppy. Likely because it had gained power in a short period of time, it wasn't able to control it properly. Raon bent the revolving sky to distort the direction of the breath, then used river footwork. Whir! His left foot extended through the flame wall. The red dragon turtle's side could be seen in that short instant. He used the momentum of his body to slash down immediately. A fierce blow that could even destroy a boulder struck the red dragon turtle's side. Spurt! The raging blade slashed, created a shallow cut through the red dragon turtle's flesh and scattering red blood around the area. Quah! The red dragon turtle screamed in irritation, extending its snout. Raon dodged the flame coming from its mouth, then tried to strike it again. The red dragon turtle's body turned red, and the injury from the cut a moment ago recovered, as if it had been stitched by a thread. It's hardening. You shouldn't hit it. Your sword will break. Heron's voice could be heard from behind him. Hardening. Hardening was one of the red dragon turtle's characteristics, a defensive ability that allowed it to create a hardness similar to its shell on its skin. I still have to attack. If he didn't attack, he wouldn't be able to tell how sturdy it was. Raon filled his blade with the 10,000 flames cultivation's fire and attacked. Clang! The sword bounced back because of its powerful defense. It felt like he was hitting tempered steel instead of flesh. It wasn't just the power, it also had a defensive ability that had become incomparable from before. Quah! It was apparently still painful, since the red dragon turtle stomped the ground while glaring fiercely at him. The ground was mercilessly cracked apart, and flame walls surged from the fissure. Whir! The red dragon turtle continuously breathed fire, and the grass and trees of Skelly Mountain ignited despite being somewhat resistant to fire. An inextinguishable forest fire was going to occur if it continued. Runan! MHM! Runan didn't need him to say any more than that. She grabbed Heron by his collar and stepped aside, gathering her ice. Whir! The silver ice poured out like snowflakes, erasing the spreading fire. The King of Essence told you before. That turtle is an irregular, just like you. You won't be able to defeat it so easily. That's even better. What? It's a perfect target for practice. Raon smiled and charged towards the right side of the red dragon turtle. Quah! Flame gushed from the red dragon turtle as it roared. Raon deflected it, then removed the 10,000 flames cultivation and started using Glacier. He imbued his cold blade with the principles of speed. Clang! The silver strike managed to pierce through the red dragon turtle's skill a little bit more, but it was still pushed back before it could finish breaking through its hardening. Krrr! The red dragon turtle squirmed in anger, its tail swinging. The flame that surrounded the tail became an iron mace, blasting the land. Its attacks are too simple. Although the heat and strength were powerful enough to block attacks, the trajectory was too simple. It was just chasing after him with its eyes. Raon pushed the exploding wall of flame back and turned to the red dragon turtle's back. Kring! He made a new combination of principles of his quick sword, striking a second time. The smooth line of coldness emerging from the blade charged at the red dragon turtle's skin, which was glowing from the heat. Rip! Rip! A strike that surpassed the red dragon turtle's cognition pierced into its flesh a bit deeper. The wound was extremely small when compared to its huge body, but it apparently didn't agree with that. Quah! The red dragon turtle raised its heavy body and started to swing its tail like crazy. Slam! Slum! Whenever the burning tail reached the land, the mountain trembled like it would collapse. Raon gradually grew cornered, the stable pieces of land disappearing. Krrr! The red dragon turtle was apparently convinced of its victory. It grinned and used its flame breath once again. Push! The flame breath seemed capable of melting anything. Right before it reached Raon, he stepped on a piece of ground even smaller than his fist and advanced. The absolute footwork that allowed him to move anywhere as long as he could set foot on allowed him to dash through the burning land. Quah! The red dragon turtle hurriedly stopped its breath, trying to swing its tail, but it was already too late. The extremely quick all-out strike had already reached it before it could even move its tail. Clang! Since the tail was also affected by hardening, Raon couldn't completely cut it off. However, the injury it created was visibly bigger than before, thanks to the quicksword technique that he had managed to advance to another level. Spurt! Red blood gushed from the wound. Key! The red dragon turtle quickly turned around, swinging its front foot. The pressure felt like a boulder was falling on him, and the heat seemed to be able to melt him to the bone. This isn't a big deal. Although the sword of coldness started to move later, it was the first one to connect. Raon deflected the blow before the red dragon turtle's front foot managed to gain power and speed. Krrr. Its huge body was pushed back. It looked like being blocked by an extremely small human hurt its pride, as an intense killing intent appeared in its eyes. Don't tell me this is all you've got. Raon smiled in excitement, breathing white steam from his mouth. I still have lots of things to try out. Each time he pummeled the solid body with the new quick technique, he could feel his sword getting faster and stronger. He could see infinite ways of making it stronger. Quah! The red dragon turtle roared, looking at the sky. The flame burst from the land like a sticky volcano and engulfed its body. Whir! The extreme firepower surging from the ground covered the red dragon turtle's entire body. Its existence itself was raised to another level. That was apparently its true form after it had devoured so much geothermal heat. It ate so damn much. I know, right? The energy wave coming from it was almost at master level from sucking so much heat from the land. Don't go. You need to use at least astral energy to cut through a monster like that. Heron's voice could be heard, trying to ruin the mood. Raon waved him off, claiming that there wasn't a problem, and lowered his posture. I just gotta fight with what I've got. Raon violently kicked the ground, charging towards the red dragon turtle that had literally turned into flame. The red dragon turtle swung its burning front foot. Raon deflected it by slashing it before it reached him. One principle sprouted in his mind. He slashed upward towards the tail, which had an iron mace attached to it. The powerful shock crushed his shoulder, but he kept advancing. One principle was erased. The fire burning on its shell became a rain shower, falling onto him. He poured all of the quicksword techniques that he'd been making so far into his attack. 2 principles disappeared, and 4 principles mingled with each other. The clash between fire and ice created a huge amount of steam, covering the entire area. He would be too slow if he relied on his vision. He focused on his senses, using the 10,000 flames cultivation like an ocean of perception to control the blade of ice. His focus increased to a frightening degree. He could feel the flow of everything, including his and his enemy's breath, as if it were touching his skin. He slashed at the flame, slashed at the iron mace, and slashed at the shell. The more he swung his sword, the faster it got, and the coldness grew more intense. The principles mingled and mixed with each other, and he ended up forgetting what technique he was even using. Krrr. The red dragon turtle, which was huge enough to cover the sun, kept getting pushed back by the small and thin blade despite its size. Fear and terror appeared in the eyes of the monster that was moving with nothing but instinct. Quah. The red dragon turtle roared and the entire land burst into flame. It pulled its head back, then pushed forward to breathe out all the flames it had accumulated so far. Whir! As if what had happened so far had been nothing but a child's play, Raon's entire vision was filled with raging fire. Kring! The rings of fire resonated with each other and slowed down the world. The principles of the quick sword filling his head meshed with each other like cogs, and his mind was struck by lightning. A single line severing the world. It was a flash of extreme quickness, faster than anything, capable of reaching its target before anyone else. Raon's hand moved before he realized it. A silver trajectory surged in front of the raging firestorm. Raon Zig Style Technique. First form. Frost Pond. The green light glimmering from Raon's blade severed through the crimson world. Chapter 172. Raon's first technique, Frost Pond, severed the pouring rain of flame. It even advanced one step further. Spurt. In his distorted vision, a thin stream of blood gushed from the red dragon turtle's throat. Frost Pond had transcended the red dragon turtle's cognition and cut through its neck. Qua. The red dragon turtle tried to step back in its panic, trying to hide its wound, but it was pointless. Frost Pond wasn't a technique that ended in a single strike. Wham! A silver spiral dashed forward, following the blue trajectory. Glacier's pure coldness followed the flow of Frost Pond to pierce the red dragon turtle's neck. Gore. The blade of coldness was also attributed with extreme quickness. Its speed didn't lose to the first attack, and the red dragon turtle gave away its neck, unable to react. Wham! The red blood gushing from the red dragon turtle's neck extinguished the flames burning the land. Rumble. In the end, the red dragon turtle was unable to keep its balance and collapsed. The waterfall of ice that slashed its neck was the only thing remaining in the air. Ha! Raon looked at the ice blade while soothing his burned skin with Glacier. Frost Pond. Pond referred to the pond under a waterfall. The first strike was from the falling water, and the second strike was from the water falling again after bouncing back up from the impact. Frost Pond was a technique that expressed those two falls. It was quick and precise, while also having an attributed blade hidden behind it. Raon was sure that even a master couldn't perfectly block that attack, not if they were only at a beginner level. Arg! Wrath let out a small groan, probably because he didn't expect the fight to end so easily. That stupid turtle. It didn't know how to use its power because it got stronger too quickly. It should have hidden inside its shell instead. It just kept using its strength like an idiot. You are right. Raon nodded. The red turtle dragon's energy was comparable to a master, but its fighting technique remained the same as before. The fight would have been a lot more difficult if it could use its power to its full extent. Consider yourself lucky. If it could properly use that flame, you would have been burned up completely. You should say that I was unlucky. What? I would have gotten even stronger if I fought something so powerful. You are really insane. Wrath shook his head, murmuring that he was sick of him. How did you like the technique? It wasn't bad. Oh? For a human. If you tried using a sloppy technique like that against the King of Essence, you'd be frozen in an instant. While Wrath was trying to be annoying by belittling him, messages appeared in front of his eyes. You've created a new technique. The title Young Founder has been created. You've defeated a mid-high rank monster. All stats have increased by 2. The messages informed him that he had received stats from creating a new technique and defeating the red dragon turtle that rose to the rank of mystical creature. What is this? Wrath violently shook his head in disbelief. How could you get the founder title from making a sloppy technique that even a 3-year-old child would be able to make? Icy wrath crawled up from his shoulders. Moreover, that red dragon turtle was a mid-rank monster at best. Some energy was all it had, and it wasn't exactly a difficult monster to defeat. Whether Wrath was angry or not, the system just gave what it came for and disappeared. Ugh, I made the system too simple. Simple? I made it so it would only consider the results to allow the user to get stronger quickly. I didn't expect it to fire back at me like this. Raon snickered, looking at Wrath as he ground his teeth. I'm not sure what he means, but I'm grateful for that. He was getting stronger at an unprecedented rate thanks to Wrath. He felt nothing but gratitude towards the giving doormat Wrath and the system. Young Founder. Title given to the young warrior that created their own martial art. Effect, power is increased, and aura consumption is decreased upon using the martial art that was created by the title bearer. A more detailed observation of other people's martial arts is possible. Just like the name Young Founder suggested, the title enhanced the martial arts power, which could be still lacking, and encouraged him to observe other people to learn even more. Since Raon was still going to make many different techniques in the future, he was really satisfied with the ability. Damn it! Wrath gasped as he looked at the title. I told you that I would gain a lot from this. Raon tapped Wrath while sheathing his sword. You don't deserve all that. Wrath's trembling shoulders made it look like he would have a seizure soon. Raon. Runan's voice could be heard. When he looked around, Runan's eyes looked as blank as always and Heron's pale face made it seem like he would start vomiting soon enough as they ran towards him. Why, you actually killed that? Heron swallowed nervously as he looked at the corpse of the red dragon turtle. He asked Raon how he managed to cut through it, a mind-blown expression on his face. There are different ways of fighting. Frost Pond was a technique of with the water attribute. The ice that was purified by glacier had a purity at the continent's level. Raon figured that even though the red dragon turtle had been enhanced from sucking on the geothermal heat, it wouldn't be able to survive it. Then you should have just used that technique from the beginning. Why did you take so much time? Heron was perfectly respectful as he spoke. He wasn't treating him like a child anymore. I couldn't use that technique earlier. Sorry? What do you? The technique I used to pierce its neck was made just now. Gasp. When Raon told him the truth, Heron's lips started to tremble. He furtively turned his head to look at Runan. Once she nodded, Heron ended up sinking to his knees. What the? He pointed his finger at the red dragon turtle, his eyes wide. Does that mean that you were fighting him without a plan before that? Well, I knew I could get stronger. If it didn't work, I could just kill it by hitting it dozens or hundreds of times. It would have been okay if he hadn't managed to complete Frost Pond. It would have taken more time, but he would have defeated the red dragon turtle in the end. Ha! Heron shook his head from his spot on the ground. He looked like he was either admiring him, couldn't understand him, or he had realized something. MHM. Runan pouted slightly, poking the red dragon turtle with her finger. She was apparently annoyed by the monster that kept breathing fire because she liked coldness. Wrath. Don't casually call the King of Essence's name. Whatever. You said it was a mystical beast earlier, right? Does that mean it has something like an energy core? Once a monster or a beast transcended its race, an energy core was created in their body. It was a priceless treasure, as absorbing it increased the amount of aura or strengthened the body. The King of Essence never said that it was actually a mystical creature, it was just pretty much one. Moreover, Wrath sneered. That turtle used all its energy to enhance its fire and shell. The only thing you can get from it is a hard shell. He giggled, jeering that he couldn't get it even with his luck. He must have misunderstood and thought that Raon was disappointed. That's enough. Raon shook his hand while smiling slightly. He created a new technique, gained a title, and even got stats. Since he could even get the red dragon turtle's corpse as his spoils, he already had plenty of rewards. It would be greedy to hope for more, huh? He went next to Renan and put his hand on the red dragon turtle. The 10,000 flames cultivation flared up, starting to absorb the powerful mana of the fire attribute inside the red dragon turtle. Rumble! Rumble! As he absorbed the tremendous amount of mana, enough to make his hand tremble, exhilaration ran down his spine. The 10,000 flames cultivation, 4 stars, has absorbed the fire energy of the red dragon turtle. The 10,000 flames cultivation's proficiency has increased. All stats have increased by 5 from a large amount of fire energy. Fire resistance has been increased to 4 stars. The messages appeared as soon as he finished absorbing all of the heat inside the red dragon turtle. Whew! He clasped his trembling fist. Although most of it had been converted into stats, a significant amount of it still remained in his mana circuit. He could grow even further from absorbing all of that. This is even better than an energy core. What's going on? Why is it giving you more rewards? You already got rewarded. You received stats and title just now. The one earlier was from my fight and victory, and this one is because the 10,000 flames cultivation acted on its own. Shut your mouth. Wrath punched the ground with his hand of ice. Does the world have to be like this? This can't be true. The world shouldn't be like this. The desperate scream of the Demon King of Wrath echoed throughout the dim Skelly mountain range. Why does everything want to favor him so much? Heron groaned, touching the dead red dragon turtle's shell and skin. So, he managed to cut through this. He could understand, since he'd been living as a blacksmith his entire life. The durability of the fire turtle's skin was equal to black steel. It was thick enough to require countless slashes unless one used astral energy, but that insane swordsman managed to cut through it with a single aura blade. Well, it wasn't just an ordinary aura. Aura of water attribute. Moreover, it was a crazy technique that slashed twice with a single swing, but it was still an aura blade. He couldn't understand how he could cut through the enhanced red dragon turtle with a mere aura blade. Heron bit his lip as he looked at Raon, who was arranging the geothermal flow. Half of his clothes were burned up, and his entire body was scorched black. He got stronger while fighting. He endured that awful heat as if it were nothing, only to get stronger while fighting and slaying the red dragon turtle. That fact was the most amazing part. Although the burns should have been painful, he didn't show any sign of pain on the outside. It was honestly his first time witnessing a monster like that. I thought he was one of those sheltered geniuses. Because he had achieved such prowess at the age of 17, he thought Raon was just a plant in a greenhouse that was born and raised according to Sieghart's program, but it wasn't the case at all. He could tell from his serious eyes and that intense battle just then. He must have been walking a deep, heavy, and muddy path. Ha! His heart was pounding for the first time in a long time. He wanted to make the monster wear the equipment he forged, and he wanted to see him reach the continent's peak with it. He felt like his lost passion was bursting from him. Let's return, then. Raon walked up to the red dragon turtle. He raised his left and right hands at the same time, taking it by its neck. How are you lifting it? Even though it had suddenly shrunk after death, it was still bigger than the average 8-horse carriage. His strength was also beyond human limits, just like his swordsmanship. Rumble. Raon started to pull on the red dragon turtle. He was apparently intending to carry it like that. It was amazing that he managed to lift it, but the fact that he decided to carry it around was even more shocking. Wait. We should call people to carry. It's okay. Raon signaled Runan with his eyes. Runan, please help me. MHM. They raised their hands at the same time to spread ice on the ground. Smooth ice covered the ground from the mountain ridge to all the way down. Uncle, get on. What? We are going to ride it down, so get on the turtle, just like Runan. Ha? Like a slide? Correct. Raon pointed at Runan, who was sitting on the turtle while holding on to the shell. Although her expression hadn't changed, considering the fact that she was blushing slightly, she was looking forward to the ice slide. All right. Heron swallowed nervously, then climbed on the red dragon turtle to take a seat. Let's go. Raon went behind it, pushing the red dragon turtle to the icy path. The huge monster, one that was pretty much the master of the mountain, turned it to a sled as it glided down. His mouth automatically opened, a scream falling from his lips because of the violent wind. He's crazy. He's really crazy. Heron resolved himself while feeling the harsh wind. He would never offend the crazy young bastard behind him. But I lost the bet. I'm screwed. The mountain ridge could be seen from the hill that Raon had abandoned. With his arms behind his back, Glenn was looking at the red dragon turtle as it slid down. Heavenly Blade Division leader. One person walked out from behind the trees upon hearing his call. She was a swordswoman with thin eyes, purple hair tied behind her head, and a sword on her back. With a small build, her young face made it look like she was in her 20s, but she was the Heavenly Blade Division leader and had been with Glenn for dozens of years. How was he in your eyes? I can understand why that slob cherishes him so much. The Heavenly Blade Division leader nodded, looking at Raon as he rode down on the red dragon turtle. He has amazing talent. In particular, the last blow seemed like one that he created himself. Yes. The battle against the red dragon turtle was apparently a practice run for that technique. It's my first time witnessing someone create a technique before becoming a master. He has the potential to become a founder. The Heavenly Blade Division leader had admiration in her voice as she looked at the trajectory of ice that still remained in the air. A warrior needed to be at least a master to create a martial art, yet Raon managed to make his first technique while being at the highest rank of expert. She would have been lying if she said she wasn't surprised. Moreover, he even had an ability to absorb the heat remaining inside the red dragon turtle. Was that the 10,000 flames cultivation ability that you mentioned before? Yes. The developed 10,000 flames cultivation absorbed the heat from the red dragon turtle. He's amazing in many ways. He's not just using his talent, he's also capable of getting through crises. He's going to do his share in any situation. Well, he's not that special. He's just decently excellent. Glenn's mouth secretly curved into a small smile as he looked ahead, attempting to avoid being noticed by the Heavenly Blade Division leader. His expression suggested that he was pleased that Raon had even managed to make the Heavenly Blade Division leader admire him, despite her being famous for her composure. It looks like he's halfway to the point of surpassing the Master's wall. The hard part starts from there, but it looks like he will be able to break through the wall at around the age of 20. The Heavenly Blade Division leader's eyes became even narrower as she watched Raon sliding all the way down. The youngest sword master in Sieghart's history will be. He will manage before 20. Sorry? I'm saying that he will become a master in his teens. But even a genius can't get over the wall in front of him quickly. I'm not saying that just because he's a genius. Glenn turned around with a slight frown on his face. It could be even more difficult for him to break through the wall because he became faster too quickly. I'm sure my lord is also aware of that fact. Although I can understand why that slobbish gambling addict keeps praising his talent and ability, I still believe that he's still far away from becoming a master. Raon has not even once skipped daybreak training since he started training. If the training ground was closed, he trained in the annex building. Even during missions, he went on a night watch to practice his swordsmanship. He managed to reach his current position thanks to his efforts and talent. The Heavenly Blade Division leader's jaw dropped. It was the first time she had heard Glenn speak so much, especially when it concerned another person. He looked like an overdoting grandfather that was arguing because someone nitpicked at the grandson he was trying to boast about. I'm certain. I expect him to reach master level next year at the earliest, and in 2 years at the latest. But you just said he's not that special. Ahem. It's later than I thought. Let's return. Glenn simply kicked the ground after looking up to the dim sky. His body floated to the sky, then rushed towards Sieghart. The Heavenly Blade Division leader tilted her head while looking at his back. Why does he feel similar to that gambling addict? Rumble. In the evening at Mirtan village, where small sounds of hammering was all that could typically be heard, a huge trembling sound resounded throughout the village, a contrast to the peaceful appearance. What's happening? An earthquake? The geothermal heat has been weak recently, and we are even getting an earthquake now. The villagers that were having late dinner hurriedly came running out when they felt the vibration. It's not an earthquake. One of them swallowed nervously, pointing further down the village. What? What would it be if it's not? Gasp. What is that? A red dragon turtle. Why is that monster in the village? I've never seen such a big one before. People stepped backward with their mouths wide open at the sight of the huge red dragon turtle. Some of the blacksmiths were about to run away. You idiots. It's not alive. The first person to figure it out pointed to the lower part of the red dragon turtle. A golden-haired young man, his clothes completely burned up, was dragging the red dragon turtle. Gasp. Did he seriously kill that? Who the hell is he? It's that boy. The one the previous village chief said he'd forge a weapon for. Ha! Apparently, the previous chief didn't go senile, since he managed to slay such a monster. He's so strong. How is he carrying something of that size? The blacksmiths admired Raon, watching him carry the red dragon turtle. Raon smiled slightly, looking at the long line of blacksmiths on both sides. They looked like children watching a circus parade. Wait. How about selling that corpse to me? I'll pay nicely. How dare you cut in line? I'll buy it. I'll pay 500 gold and 10 pieces of equipment. I'll pay everything in gold. How about 2,000 gold? Once he got halfway to the peak, a bunch of blacksmiths and merchants came together and stopped him to ask him to sell the corpse. Hey! What are you doing? As Raon was trying to shake his hand, Heron, who had been pushing the corpse with an unnoticeable amount of strength, stepped forward and pushed the merchants and blacksmiths away. 500 gold? 2,000 gold? Who are you trying to scam with such a small amount of money? Don't you realize he's my father's client, huh? No, that's... Keep doing that if you want to stop trading here. The merchants and blacksmiths stepped back a little upon hearing that. Some people tried raising the price a little, but they lowered their hands when Heron glared at them fiercely. Let's go. Heron pointed at Vulcan's smithy at the peak, as if he were a butler. Thank you. Raon snickered, dragging the red dragon turtle up the hill. Thanks to Raon, who froze the ground slightly from the rear, he managed to drag it to the top. Vulcan was waiting outside, probably because he also felt the vibrations. He examined the red dragon turtle from top to bottom with stunned eyes. Was that the problem? Yes. I killed it because it was sucking on the geothermal heat. It's my first time seeing a red dragon turtle of that size. I was surprised. I thought it was a hatchling. It wasn't just the size. It was also stupidly strong. Heron extended his arms. It's like this because it shrunk, but it was even bigger before. Old man should have seen it. He murmured that it was regrettable and sighed. Since I fixed the part where the geothermal heat went awry, it will stabilize either tomorrow or in 2 days. Raon dusted off his hands after placing the red dragon turtle in the open area in front of the workshop. Ha! Just like before, you never do anything ordinary. That's all you have to say after killing a monster like this. Vulcan exclaimed, looking at Raon's peaceful eyes. Enter. He pointed inside the workshop, smiling slightly. I've also finished my preparations. Chapter 173. Raon followed Vulcan into the workshop. The table that used to be covered in a bunch of miscellaneous items now had 3 boxes on it instead. Are those boxes what you meant by preparations? Yes. Vulcan smiled slightly, then opened the first box. There was the golden shard that came from the golden shard stone. The second one also contains something you've already seen. The second box had the golden charcoal that he made in the North Grave Mountains charcoal kiln. Even though 5 years had passed since then, there wasn't a single scratch on it. And the last one. Vulcan licked his lips slightly, then opened the third box. There was a golden shard that was a bit bigger than the one inside the first box. You managed to get it. Raon's jaw dropped upon seeing the second golden shard. I didn't think he'd be able to acquire it. Since the golden shard was the most precious metal, he'd thought that Mirtan village wouldn't have any of it, and even if they did, they wouldn't hand it over. He was worried that he would need to go somewhere else in order to find it, but Vulcan managed to acquire the golden shard in such a short amount of time. He wasn't the continent's blacksmith for no reason. Ha! Heron clearly tilted his head at the sight of the golden shard inside the third box. Did the village have this? He tapped the golden shard while murmuring that it was strange. There's no way I wouldn't have known if they had a golden shard of such a size. Old man, are you sure you got it from the village? Why, yes. Vulcan nodded in a slightly awkward manner. It's really strange. Why does your face look like that? Who did you get this fro? Shut up. He frowned and hit Heron's head. Qua. Why are you hitting me again? Heron stepped back while grasping his head and screaming. I'll become an idiot if you keep doing that. It's okay since you've always been an idiot. Vulcan kicked Heron, then shook his hand to tell him to go away. Where did you get the golden shard? Raon asked, looking at the golden shard inside the third box. Since it was his first sword, he didn't want to cause any trouble. Don't worry, I didn't steal or take away from someone. I know Sir Blacksmith isn't the type of person to do that. I just figured I should express my gratitude to the person that gave you this. It was an anonymous sponsor. They said they didn't want to reveal their identity. An anonymous sponsor? They said they wanted to sponsor you after hearing about your identity and circumstances. Maybe they will make some strange requests later. They would never do that. I swear on my name. There won't be any problem whatsoever, even if you accept this golden shard. Vulcan shook his hand, telling him to stop asking questions. He was covered in cold sweat, but he looked confident. He didn't seem to be lying at least. All right, then. Raon nodded. There was no way an excellent blacksmith like Vulcan would do strange things. There seemed to be a secret behind it, but he decided to trust him for now. Vulcan opened the big box underneath. The cold blood Runan brought was divided into 2 pieces. Runan. He gave the big one among them and one of the gold shards from the table at Runan. Take this and go to the village chief's workshop that's right underneath us. I already told him about you, so he should be waiting for you. Vulcan pointed at the diamond-shaped workshop right under the hill. Since he said it takes about 2 days for the geothermal heat to return, you should go ahead and decide on the size and shape of the sword that you want. Yes. Runan took the cold blood in one of the gold shards, then stood up. She nodded at Raon before leaving. She was probably wishing him good luck in her own way. See ya. MHM. Raon waved his hand while smiling, and Runan pleasantly skipped down the hill. It's your turn now. Vulcan closed the boxes and looked at Raon. You said before that you wanted to become a swordsman that won't lose. Is that still valid? Of course. Raon nodded. Not only had that objective not changed, but his resolution had also grown even more solid. In order to achieve what he wanted, it was necessary for him to remain undefeated no matter who he faced. I like how consistent you are. Vulcan smiled, placing the red steel on the table. This is flaming steel. Half the sword will consist of this steel. It's a bit lacking compared to the cold steel, but it should be fine once the new material is added. And what would be the new material? You know, the turtle you brought. He pointed at the red dragon turtle's corpse, which could be seen from inside the workshop. By using that, the flaming steel should become a material that doesn't lose to the cold blood. Cold blood, flaming steel, and the golden shard to keep the balance. A proper sword shall be born. Vulcan smiled, clasping his fist. Tell me what shape you want, then. I'd like it to be similar to this one. Raon took out the sword he'd brought with him, handing it over. It wasn't thick or thin, and it was about 1 finger length longer than the average sword. Since he was going to learn countless swordsmanship in the future, the sword needed to have a versatile shape that could use all kinds of characteristics. Versatile sword. I suppose that would be suitable for you. Vulcan narrowed his eyes and nodded. I see. Come back at daybreak in 2 days. I'll start working on it at that time, since that's when the heat will return. I'll be back in 2 days, then. Raon said goodbye to Vulcan and went outside. He went to the village chief's workshop right away, as he was worried about Runan. Father. Haran returned to the workshop after watching Raon's back for a while. What's up? Why are you calling me that in that disgusting way? Vulcan shook his hand, as if he was dealing with something dirty. He hadn't called him father in a long time. I have a request. Haran knelt. Request? Please allow me to help you make that sword. Did you go crazy? I also think I'm crazy. However, it's really going to be over if I miss this opportunity. How would you even help with the work when all you've been doing is drinking and gambling? Please. It's okay if you leave the menial labor to me. It's okay if I can't touch the sword. Just let me stay inside the workshop, at least. He slammed his head on the ground so hard that it bled. You? What did you even see from Raon? Potential. The obscurity started to disappear from Haran's eyes as he raised his head. I've witnessed an unprecedentedly huge potential. I want to help make that potential even thicker and stronger. Please, help me. Ha! Vulcan exhaled a little, meeting Heron's serious eyes. I will start at daybreak in 2 days. Fix your mind and remove the smell of liquor by then. I'll kick you out immediately if Raon refuses. All right. Thank you. Heron bowed right away, then ran outside. Oh my. Vulcan snickered, watching Heron run after 2 years. I've wanted him to get his mind straight, but I didn't know this would happen. He licked his lips, looking at the village chief's workshop, which was brilliantly lit up. I guess I'm indebted to Raon. Southern Zighart. Casino entrance. HMHMM. Rimmer was walking out, humming. The pathetic appearance that was weighing on his shoulders that morning had disappeared, and he looked as confident as a triumphant general. Rimmer grinned, looking at the gold pouch in his hand. I'm not sure if this is a good thing. Since the old man that had been always winning against him wasn't there anymore, he won lots of money for once from the others. He should have been able to live comfortably for a while with all that money. I'll repay the debts first. No. I can just win even more tomorrow and return once I have even more money. He clenched his fist, murmuring the crazy lines that every gambling addict usually spoke. I hope I'm as lucky as today, tomorrow. Hey, gambling addict. As Rimmer was about to enter the pub, a sharp voice could be heard from behind him. This voice with 1 ladle's worth of bluntness and 1 spoonful of kindness must be. When he looked around, the Heavenly Blade Division leader was standing there with her arms crossed. Our Heavenly Blade Division leader. I don't even have a speck of kindness for you, so stop speaking nonsense. The Heavenly Blade Division leader shook her head with a frown. Wow. It's been a long time. Poof. Rimmer gladly waved his hand, and the Heavenly Blade Division leader snorted. I won quite a lot today. Do you want some drinks? I'll buy. He asked her to the pub, his finger to his lips. Let's have a conversation before that. Conversation sounds great. Tell me about your mission. Follow me. The Heavenly Blade Division leader bobbed her finger, then went to the outer part of the main street. There's nothing special around here. We could have spoken in the pub. Shut up and follow me. Why is our cute Heavenly Blade Division leader so hysterical today? Do you need to get your head cut off by said cutie before you shut that mouth up? Ugh. Rimmer swallowed, rubbing his neck. Where are we going? I need to sleep early today so that I can win a lot tomorrow. We've arrived at our destination. The Heavenly Blade Division leader stopped at an open area behind the main street, where no one would come. What kind of conversation? Arg. Rimmer's lips trembled. He could feel the presence of his natural enemy. His whole body was warning him to run away immediately. And no way. He turned his head to the side. The person that shouldn't have been there, the most out-of-place man with the place, was leaning against the wall. My lord. Glenn Zighart was looking down at him with a cold gaze. You ignored my warning. No, that's why I came for a conversation. Those aren't the eyes of someone that wants a conversation, though. Glenn's cold gaze crushed his entire body, as if it would immediately start devouring his flesh. Speaking isn't the only way of conversing. The conversation can also be done with bodies. Glenn slowly raised his hand. Rumble. Black clouds appeared in the clear night sky, a mysterious scene to behold. Please wait a moment. Rimmer didn't panic, calmly raising his hand. I knew this would happen. He already expected the situation would occur the moment he borrowed money from Ren. Since he expected it, he was prepared for it as well. Because I'm not an idiot. He had no intention of letting that lightning strike him like an idiot. He could safely get out of that situation if he used the method he had prepared. Please listen to me. Rimmer slowly lowered his hand, telling him to calm down. I'm sure you are curious what Raon is doing right now. Glenn was a grandson's grandpa to the core. He was definitely going to stop if he talked about Raon. It was the only way to stop the destructive king of the north. If you are curious about what he is doing right now, please get rid of that cloud first. Rimmer's jaw dropped. Instead of disappearing or getting thinner, the dark clouds in the sky became even thicker and started radiating crimson lightning. This shouldn't be happening, though? It couldn't be. My lord. I'm talking about Raon. I'll tell you everything about where he went, and what he is about to do. Because you like Raon. He hurriedly started shouting, but Glenn's eyes became even colder and more serious, and the thunderous cloud created terrible lightning instead of disappearing. How is this happening? He never imagined that grandson's grandpa could react that way. The only way left for him was to run away. Hey! I really am going to die if I get hit by that. Farewell, gambling addict. The moment the Heavenly Blade Division leader smiled softly, the sky was dyed red. Rumble. Rimmer dropped the gold pouch from his hand, while looking at the lightning falling down on him. Was this why I was strangely lucky today? 2 days later. Daybreak. Raon confirmed that the geothermal heat had returned to the village, then went to Vulcan's workshop. Even though he expected Vulcan to be alone in the workshop, Heron was with him. His hair, which used to flutter like seaweed in the water, was shaved. Strength could be seen inside his eyes. It was an extreme change, considering it had happened in only 2 days. Why are you here? You can ask me to do menial labor or pretend I'm not here. Please allow me to stay in this place. He bowed deeply. His trembling throat showed that he was serious about it. Why? Because I have a feeling I'll be able to understand something. Raon turned his head towards Vulcan. Do as you wish. I don't care whether he's here or not. Then let's ask him to do some menial labor. He was planning to use Heron as the Light Wind's exclusive blacksmith anyway once he had his head on straight. It would be beneficial to him if Heron could understand something from that place. Thank you. That's really nice of you. Vulcan smiled slightly while patting Raon's shoulder. It looked like even the continent's blacksmith was attached to his family, since he was sincerely expressing his thanks. Let's get started, since I don't even know how long it's going to take. Heron. Yes. Heron ran inside the workshop, igniting the furnace. The temperature soared in an instant. The workshop's heat was incomparable to before, thanks to the geothermal heat returning to normal. Insert the auras that you use in those 2 metals. Vulcan pointed at the cold blood in the flaming steel, which was enhanced by the red dragon turtle's shell on the table. Yes. Raon went to the table, grabbing the flaming steel and cold blood. He inserted Glacier into the cold blood and the 10,000 flames cultivation inside the flaming steel at the same time. Fizzle. The flaming steel turned a burning red, and the cold blood started shining in pure white like the snowfield of daybreak before anyone stepped inside. ZZZT. As he was trying to increase the intensity of light and heat by inserting auras of higher purity and density, an ominous energy started to creep up. It was obvious who the perpetrator was. Wrath. What's up? The King of Essence is helping you. Probably because of Wrath's coldness, the cold blood that used to radiate a pure silvery light had started to be polluted. You are getting stronger too quickly. The King of Essence will help you regain your balance. As if he was trying to vent his anger at Raon getting too many rewards after slaying the red dragon turtle 2 days ago, he kept spreading murky energy. Ha! Raon sighed on the inside. He thought Wrath might try that, but he actually did it. It was a good thing that he took measures against that sloppy demon king. There's a pub named Dwarven Hammer at the outskirts of Mirtan village. What hammer? What kind of bullshit are you? That pub has a menu item called the Uten roasted pig, and I heard the skin is as crisp as cookies, the meat is extremely soft, and the sauce has a deep taste because it's made from 50 different ingredients. Whoa! As soon as Wrath heard that, he stopped shoving coldness into the metal and started to drool coldness from his mouth. I was planning to eat that before leaving because you've been nice recently, but I guess I shouldn't. The King of Essence is generous. There's no way you can become a threat to the King of Essence just because you obtain a good sword. He put his hands on his waist. He started to pull out the murky energy, with a refreshing smile. But when are you planning to go to that pub? When I finish making the sword. Ahem. The King of Essence will be waiting mercifully. Wrath returned to the bracelet as soon as he heard the answer. His drooling sound could be heard from outside of it. He's so easy. Raon snickered and erased Wrath's energy. He put his aura inside the two metals until he was told to stop. That's enough. While he was shoving aura into the metal as if he were pouring water into a pot with a hole, Vulcan raised his hand. Judging from the energy imbued in the metal, I can see how much you've grown. Vulcan exclaimed intensely upon feeling the energy ingrained in the two metals. That's enough. You can stay back now. Yes. Raon nodded and stepped back. Vulcan threw the first golden charcoal into the furnace, where a thick haze was shimmering from. Wham! The heat haze that had a thickness of a finger puffed up at the size of the forearm, and the furnace's heat became so intense that it was difficult to breathe. Huff! Coo! Even Vulcan and Heron groaned, despite having spent their entire lives in front of a furnace. It was even affecting Raon, who was staying back, so those two must have been feeling the pain of getting scalded. Vulcan threw the two lumps of golden shard inside the furnace, extending his hand behind him. Collect your mind. Bring the flaming steel here first. Yes. Vulcan accepted the flaming steel from Heron, then placed it in the middle of the furnace. Rumble. The tremendous heat raged and started to melt the crimson lump of metal. Next. Yes. Vulcan took out the half-melted flaming steel from the furnace, then inserted the cold blood. One stream of pure coldness rose from the powerful heat. Put them at the same time this time. Yes. Vulcan and Heron inserted the half-melted flaming steel and cold blood into the furnace at the same time. Although the powerful heat looked like it could even melt the furnace itself, the flaming steel and the cold blood didn't melt so easily. Whir! Once the lumps of metals lost their original form from getting burned for a long time, Vulcan took out the two metals and picked up the hammer. Clang! 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 Vulcan's hammering had begun. The precise hammering wasn't strong, weak, nor slow. Just like people's natural breathing from the moment they are born, the sound and flow remained constant. The hammering of a blacksmith that had been walking a single path for dozens of years reverberated throughout the heat-filled workshop. Gulp! Raon swallowed, watching him hammer with his soul. Just like an absolute swordsman swinging his sword, every single instance of the hammering sound made his hair stand on end. He couldn't breathe, nor could he take his eyes off the man as he kept starting at Vulcan's hammering. Rumble! When the hammering started to ride the flow, the 10,000 flames cultivation rose by itself and started dancing magnificently, while the glacier stood up straight and started singing elegantly. Clang! 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 The two energies dashed through the mana circuits in his whole body, as if they were harmonizing with Vulcan's hammering, to endlessly amplify their energies. It was an explosive dash that was difficult to control. Huff! Raon couldn't endure it anymore, sinking to the ground. What I need to do right now. Even if he tried, he wouldn't be able to stop them from going out of control. What he needed to do was to harden the foundations. Cling! He released both the 10,000 flames cultivation in Glacier, then started using the Ring of Fire. The 6 rings of fire vibrated to gently calm the energies that were going out of control, and he regained some leeway. Clang! 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 According to Vulcan's hammering sound, which felt like it was directly striking their soul instead of a metal, the Ring of Fire, the 10,000 flames cultivation, and Glacier moved together like a single body. Clang! Clang! The hammering sound became even stronger than before. It was the sound of Vulcan striking the third metal, the golden shard. Ring of Fire was the part that harmonized with the golden shard. The 6 rings resonated, as if they were responding to the resonance of the King of Metals, and created a flow as prevalent as the river. The endless flow of energies of the Ring of Fire, the 10,000 flames cultivation, and Glacier made the red dragon turtle's heat that he hadn't managed to absorb entirely melt into his whole body like butter. Raon's muscles and bones matured to become even sturdier, and his mana circuit and energy center throbbed and inflated with life. Rumble! Feeling the exhilaration of his inner energy and outer energy resonating with each other as if they had been connected by an invisible thread, Raon focused deeply on his cultivation. Clang! 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 Vulcan was in the same state as Raon. With a focus that should have been called immersion instead, he struck the metal endlessly with spiritual fire blazing from his blue eyes. As he kept hammering the metals with his soul, the flaming steel, cold blood, and the golden shard mingled with each other as if they were originally a single metal together, the blade radiating with a frightening black light that had started to make its appearance. Chapter 174. I entered the workshop for the first time at the age of 8. I took up a hammer when I was 12, and I forged a sword for the first time at the age of 14. It wasn't actually a sword. It was nothing but a flattened scrap of metal, made from striking heated metal. I made a sword that could actually be called a weapon during the winter when I was 15. A famous swordsman gave me gold coins, telling me that he liked it. I believed I was talented at smithing and opened my own workshop, despite my father trying to dissuade me. Probably because the swordsman that bought my first sword became more and more famous, clients kept flooding into my workshop. I expanded the workshop, accepting novice blacksmiths to increase the workload. I supplied weapons to countless organizations to rake in the money. The workshop became bigger and bigger, and gold piled up like a mountain. My frequent use of a hammer decreased gradually, and I spent more time outside, spending money. It was a successful life for such a young age. I could even be called a child. It was a life that anyone would yearn for. And the accident happened while I was enjoying my life in such a manner. There was a problem with the swords and shields that I supplied in large amounts, all because I couldn't properly check the quality if I were to meet the deadline. It resulted in soldiers dying or being heavily injured in their monster exterminations. The kingdom asked for a tremendous amount as a compensation fee, and I used all the fortune that I'd accumulated to barely meet the request. The money I'd been accumulating for over 10 years was gone, but that wasn't the problem. The problem was the fact that people died because of the sloppy swords that I had made. I finally realized that I'd been making weapons that could kill or save people's lives, rather than tools for my business. I realized that I was a blacksmith, not a merchant. I could finally understand why my father was against me leaving his workshop so early on. He predicted that such an accident would happen, as I didn't have the correct mindset yet, despite having the skills. I kept drinking every day after that. I drank and drank and drank. I couldn't stop drinking, because I kept remembering the people that had died because of my weapons. Living as a drunkard for 10 years, I used up the small fortune that I had left, then returned to my ruined workshop while thinking about killing myself. As I was trying to die in the workshop that I set up myself, I saw the hammer on the furnace. It was the first hammer that my father had bought me. Since I'd used it for over 10 years, I decided to try holding it before I died. I unconsciously burst into tears the moment I grabbed the hammer. I sank to the ground, crying alone for the whole day, as if the emotions that had been accumulating after that incident exploded out at once. I stood up after weeping until my tears stopped falling. Mysteriously, my suicidal intentions were gone alongside the tears. I grabbed my father's hammer and ignited the rusty furnace. I inserted the scrap metal and my useless thoughts into the raging fire. The only thing left in me was my desire to hammer. I struck the steel. I struck the steel. I struck the steel. Money, fame, emotion, life, everything was thrown into the furnace to melt it all and kept striking the hammer. When I finally came back to my senses after a long time had passed, I was called the continent's blacksmith, and I had made a sword for the warrior that was said to be the strongest. I overcame my regrettable youth to achieve great success, and even had a family. Although all I had left to do was to enjoy a satisfying life, something was missing. The unknown deficiency created a hole in my heart. That was my distress. The despair coming from the fact that I couldn't forge a sword better than the heavenly tremor was pressuring upon me. I let go of the hammer that I'd been using for so long, running away while claiming that I would make a golden charcoal as an excuse. I spent 10 years in vain, comforting myself by saying that I was putting in effort. As I was about to give up and return, a blond child visited me. He was small and extremely thin for his age, but his eyes were somber and cold. He said he wanted to feel the fire, and I let him do as he wished, since it was obvious he wouldn't be able to endure it anyway. However, that wasn't the case. The blonde endured a heat intense enough that even skilled blacksmiths would have run away in disgust, eventually creating his own aura. The legendary golden charcoal was born, but my eyes were looking at the kid instead of the golden charcoal. I felt a passion stir. I wanted to forge a sword for someone for the first time in dozens of years, and promised him that I'd make his weapon. I spent 5 years after that building my body and polishing my mind, and the child came to visit me. The child had grown up so much, to the point that it made me happy, and he brought the best materials and circumstances through multiple connections. The day the sword was to be forged, I increased the furnace's heat to the extreme by using the golden charcoal before putting the lumps of metals inside. I burned away the impurities in my mind, watching the metals slowly melt. I even threw my ambition to surpass the heavenly tremor and the desire to leave behind the best masterpiece before dying into the fire to melt them. The only thing I had left was the blacksmith's instinct to hammer steel. I took the lump of metal that had melted alongside my worthless thoughts from the furnace, then grabbed my hammer. I struck the steel. I struck the steel. I struck the steel. Just like when I was inside that ruined workshop 50 years ago, I forgot about myself and kept striking the steel. Responding to my focus, it polished like a blade. The three different kinds of metal mingled with each other, slowly taking on the appearance of a sword. Jet black. Just like the heavenly tremor forged with golden shard, the entire blade was black. I put the sword into the furnace, then took it out to start striking it again. It was gradually shaped, and the blade became sharper, but the black color covering the blade didn't disappear. I sprinkled crayon powder and put it back into the furnace. The blade that should have had the shining white color of a snowfield still maintained its black color. I struck and struck again. It was fine if it was going to be my last work. I kept striking with the hammer, and even forgot the flow of time. The blade formed into the shape of a versatile sword, and its sharpness reached a frightening degree, but the black color covering the blade remained the same. I don't understand. Even though I'd been wielding a hammer to strike steel for dozens of years, I couldn't accurately figure out whether the blade was complete or not. It was the first time that had happened to me. Whir! As I lowered my hammer because I didn't know what to do next, the sword started to cry. It was a different vibration from the sword resonance, which was an attempt to harmonize with its master. The sword was howling for its master. Father! Wait! I made the panicked heron step back, observing the sword's howling. The sword floated into the air from its intense vibrations. Whir! Floating on its own, the sword started flying towards Raon, who was sitting at the end of the workshop, as if a string had been attached to it. Whir! The sword stood upside down, stopping right under Raon's nose and starting to cry once again. As it was about to fall to the ground, as if it had run out of strength, Raon extended his hand to grab the sword. Kring! The sword vibrated intensely in Raon's hand. The violet vibration made the black color of the blade turn to ash, scattering away as the snow-white blade made its appearance. Spark! As the blade glowed with the brilliant light of a snowfield reflecting the sunlight, Raon opened his eyes. Blue and red. The two colors filled his eyes, radiating a mysterious brilliance. I finally realized. That sword was literally born for Raon. Raon narrowed his eyes, looking at the sword in his hand. It was his first time grabbing it, but it fit his hand so perfectly that it even felt mysterious. He felt like he had found his other half that he had lost. Whir! The energy from the 10,000 flames cultivation and glacier grew excited just from him holding the sword. The aura amplification ability of golden shard, flaming steel, and cold blood must have gotten a lot stronger. Wow, seriously? Vulcan exclaimed in amazement and sank to the ground. Even I have never seen a flying sword look for its own master before. Ah! Raon immediately realized that he wasn't joking, as he wouldn't be holding the sword if it hadn't flown at him. I knew that it was incomplete, but it finally completed itself from meeting its master. Vulcan breathed out in awe. That is your sword, Raon Zighart. That sword will follow no one else but you, and you are the only one that can use it. He examined the blade that shone white with bewildered eyes before he continued. And it's my best masterpiece. Does that mean that it's better than the heavenly tremor? That's a different story, as the heavenly tremor is made entirely of golden shard. It doesn't exactly surpass it. However, the sword forged with everything I have isn't the heavenly tremor, but that nameless sword. I returned to that time in the past to just keep hammering. Vulcan murmured that he felt free after satisfying his wish and regrets. Do you have a name in mind? No, I don't have one yet. Then, can I name it for you? Of course. Raon met Vulcan's eyes and nodded. Since the blacksmith normally named the sword, there was no reason for him to refuse. Heavenly tremor means that it shakes the heavens. With that in mind, how about naming yours Heavenly Drive? Does it mean leading the heavens? Yes. Show me that you can lead the heavens with your own power, never losing. It should be possible with that sword. It's an arrogant name, but I like it. Heavenly Drive. When Raon gripped the sword tightly, messages appeared in front of his eyes. You've completely absorbed the red dragon turtle's heat. The Ring of Fire's proficiency has increased. The 10,000 Flames cultivation's proficiency has increased. Glacier's proficiency has increased. All stats have increased by 3. The messages announced that he had managed to absorb all of the internal energies that had remained unorganized. However, that wasn't the end of it. Your personal weapon has been forged for the first time. The legendary weapon Heavenly Drive has recognized you as its master. All stats have increased by 2. The stats had increased from gaining a personal weapon for the first time. Judging from the increased stats and the increased proficiency of the Ring of Fire and his auras, he had managed to surpass about 70% of the wall towards the master level. He could start to see what loomed beyond the wall little by little. I'm close. It looked like he could break through the master's wall by next year at the latest. In the future. Coup. As Raon was clenching his fist in anticipation, Rat popped out from the bracelet. Again. You are doing that again. He looked enraged as he glared at the message. How much are you planning to ruin the King of Essence's main body before you are satisfied? You bastard. Uten roasted pig. Ha? The Uten roasted pig is waiting for us. Ugh. As soon as he mentioned the Uten roasted pig, Rat's aggressive coldness settled like soft hair. Damn it. Even though he was angry, he seemed to be suppressing his anger in anticipation for the roasted pig. As expected of the Demon King of Gluttony, who used his stomach to create his fake identity wrath. You did a good job as well. Vulcan smiled at Heron, who was leaning his back against the wall. Raon and I were completely focused, and you saved us by moving without breaking that concentration. You were trotting around so easily. TSK. I know you are complimenting me, but why would you say trot? Heron complained with a frown. Indeed. Raon nodded. It was really difficult to move around without breaking their concentration, as they were both immersed in the work. He agreed with Vulcan's compliment. Heron was talented. Thank you for your efforts. Ahem. Raon expressed his gratitude with his eyes, and Heron awkwardly scratched under his ears. Let's get some fresh air in. I feel really suffocated from being locked in here for 2 days straight. Arg. While opening the closed steel door, he saw the woman standing in front of it and stepped back in surprise. Runan was standing in front of the door, her silver hair flowing over her left shoulder. Judging from her slightly red eyes, she must have been waiting for a pretty long time. Have you finished? Runan tilted her head, hugging a silver sword that he's never seen before. It looks like you've finished as well. MHM. Runan drew the sword that she was hugging, handing it over. With a silver color just like her hair, the sharp blade gave off an aloof impression. He could tell that it was an extremely excellent blade just from looking at it. Fluttering blue flower petals were engraved on the scabbard, giving it an elegant air. Runan's expression didn't change, but she looked extremely pleased, her cheeks blushing slightly. It matches her perfectly. He made it well. Vulcan gave a big nod, admiring Runan's sword. Raon. I'm planning to make your scabbard with the red dragon turtle's shell. I'll weave it in a flashy and durable way so that you can also use it as a club. He clenched his fist as if he were telling him to rest assured, despite his clearly exhausted state. Heron, you should help me as well. Okay. I mean, yes. Understood. Heron pounded his chest with his clenched fist, telling him to leave it to him. Thank you. Raon stood up and bowed at Vulcan and Heron. I was really lucky to meet Sir Blacksmith, as I managed to obtain such a nice sword. Lucky? Raon raised his head, hearing Vulcan's voice asking what he meant. There was no luck involved in any material used to forge that sword. The reason she gave you the cold blood, the way the golden charcoal was created, and the reason I decided to forge your sword, it was all because you have been yourself. I have been myself. The heavenly drive is created from your relationships, not just some luck. Vulcan smiled softly as he walked towards him, then patted his shoulder. The path you've been walking so far isn't wrong. Keep devoting yourself to your progress. The way he said he wasn't wrong, and the word relationship touched his heart. He had the feeling that he was getting comforted for his hellish previous life. Yes. Raon bit his trembling lip, bowing once again. Thank you. Really? 2 days later. The scabbard containing the heavenly drive was hanging around Raon's waist. The golden light of dawn and the blackish red light of the evening glow mixed with each other in harmony, creating the perfect appearance of a scabbard that would contain the sword leading the heavens. He could only admire Vulcan and Heron's skills, as they had managed to create such a piece of art from the red dragon turtle shell, which had nothing but hardness to boast about. I'll leave now. Raon bowed to Vulcan, who was standing in front of the workshop. It's a shame. You could have stayed for a bit longer. Since my mission's going to begin soon, I think I need to make my preparations as the vice squad leader. I suppose, since that ruffian is the squad leader, you must have a lot of work to do. Vulcan clicked his tongue, saying that the world must be coming to an end. Yes, indeed. Raon snickered and nodded. What are you planning to do about that? Vulcan pointed his finger at the red dragon turtle shell, claws, and teeth that were inside the workshop. I'm too exhausted to make anything with them now. He shook his hand to fan himself. He had gotten more wrinkles, making it look like he aged at least 10 years after making the sword and the scabbard. He wasn't lying about being too tired. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize. It was me that wanted to make the sword, and I'm satisfied enough with it. Vulcan smiled honestly. He looked like he had no regrets. Then, about those. Please leave them to me. As Raon was about to speak, Heron, who was behind him, jumped forward. If you leave it to me, I'll create the best equipment with them. He knelt and bowed while saying that. I don't even know anymore. Vulcan shrugged, telling Raon to do as he wished. We didn't settle the reward for the bet we made when we first met, right? Heron finally remembered it and screamed. Since you have to grant any of my wishes, I'll tell you what I want. Work as the Light Wind Squad's exclusive blacksmith until you manage to forge a sword that meets my standards. Raon smiled, meeting Heron's eyes. They had begun to look more respectable. Since Heron had enough talent that even Vulcan acknowledged him, and he had begun to learn his lesson over the last 4 days, Raon was sure that he would become an excellent blacksmith in the future. If he could turn him into the Light Wind's exclusive blacksmith, it was going to be extremely helpful for sure. I'll do it for sure. Thank you. Heron immediately nodded. I'll give you your first mission, then. Please make the basic armor for 34 swordsmen by using the red dragon turtle's materials. Basic armor. Can you do it? Of course. Just you wait. He confidently smiled. I'm also going to check on whether this idiot is working properly or not. Vulcan smiled, while lightly hitting Heron on the head. We will get going now. See you later. Raon and Runan bowed at them, before taking their new swords and going down the hill. Vulcan smiled slightly, watching their backs. I'm looking forward to seeing how much stronger you'll be the next time we meet. A 17-year-old swordsman that could already see the master level. The entire continent would be shaken if his name became famous. In anticipation for the majestic appearance of the heavenly drive in Raon's hands, he automatically clenched his fist. Father! What are you doing over there? Come here already and help me. I can't carry all this on my own. Heron's voice could be heard from inside the workshop. Even though he'd been living as a loser for 2 years, he snapped out of it in the span of 4 days and displayed a passion similar to Vulcan's own in the past. A smile appeared on Vulcan's face, even though he was exhausted. Raon expressed his gratitude, but he was the one that felt the most grateful. All right. Vulcan wished for good luck on Raon and Runan's future battles as they got further away, then returned to his noisy workshop. Raon went to the Dwarven Hammer, located in the corner of Mirtan village, with Runan. There were many people inside despite it being on the outskirts. It seemed to be a famous pub, just like Heron had said. Sniff. I already like the fragrance. I can smell the fragrance of that sauce that's made from 50 different ingredients. Wrath licked his lips, already excited upon reaching the entrance. Calm down a little. There's no way the King of Essence can calm down, as it's his first time eating some proper food in a few days. The King of Essence will definitely not calm down. Then wait a moment. We are going to eat soon enough. Raon grabbed Wrath to force him to calm down, then entered the pub. Welcome. The server came running out and smiled. 2 people? Yes. Raon nodded. They were guided to a table inside. What are you going to order? The server gave them the menu and politely gathered her hands in front of her. What do you want to eat? Whatever Raon is eating. Runan blinked her eyes, telling her to order the same thing as him. Then 2 servings of Uten roasted pig. Ah, I'm really sorry. The server frowned and lowered her head. We are out of ingredients. You ran out of ingredients? Because people gathered from everywhere upon hearing the news about the red dragon turtle being slain, we used up all the ingredients. Arg. The moment she said they had run out of ingredients, a strange sound came from Wrath's throat. Then, when do the ingredients? It will take at least a week. Raon felt sorry for Wrath, but there was nothing more he could do, as he couldn't possibly wait for a whole week. Why the hell? The flames of coldness raged from Wrath's whole body. Why the hell is it never there when the King of Essence wants to eat? It can't be helped, since the ingredients. It's all your fault. This all happened because you brought that turtle here. You should have just sold it already. Raon scratched the back of his head. Since he was right about that, he couldn't say anything. I should blow off his steam with something else. He felt like he needed to eat something other than the Uten roasted pig in order to cheer Wrath up. Do you have any recommendations? There's a pretty famous menu item, even though it's not as famous as the roasted pig. What is it? The blacksmith set menu. It has a warm onion stew, soft bread, and even stir-fried chicken with sweet sauce. That item is definitely delicious. Raon hung his head while swallowing nervously. Wrath hated set menus the most, and even the composition was the exact same as at Haben Castle. Set menu. Set menu again. Set menus exist everywhere. Of course, it. Shut up. Just as he expected, deadly lightning exploded from Wrath's eyes. God damn it. Did everyone plot together or something? Why is this menu the exact same as that damned castle scout menu? He screamed, looking up at the ceiling. The entire world hates the King of Essence. Chapter 175. Raon returned to Sieghart with Renan, who was embracing her new sword as if it were a precious treasure, and Wrath, who was sulking because he wasn't able to eat the Uten roasted pig. Since he now had an affiliation, he went to the 5th training ground before going to the annex building. Because it was dinner time, there were no swordsmen around. Rimmer was sprawling alone on the platform. Squad leader, I've returned with my sword. Ha! Ha! Rimmer stood up, waddling like a drunkard. His face was a lot thinner than before, bandages were wrapped around multiple parts of his body, and his red hair was blackened, as if it had been scorched by fire. Did something happen to you? Not really. He waved his hand dismissively, telling him that nothing really happened. His expression gave him away, though. Raon figured that he had been beaten up by someone for causing trouble while gambling. Did you rampage again after losing money? I didn't lose. I won this time. Then why do you look like that? There was this nasty old man. Rimmer sighed, looking at the ground. A nasty old man? Yes. He's an extremely evil person. He doesn't reveal what he's thinking and can't stand to see others doing well. Cool. I see. Just like when he listened to Wrath, Raon simply brushed off his words. Rimmer was apparently being pathetic again while he was forging the heavenly drive. Yawn. Even Runan was yawning. She must have been bored. Since I delivered my report, I'm going back. Wait. As he was about to leave after saying goodbye, Rimmer raised his hand. Did you two try using your swords? We returned right after receiving them. Of course, we didn't. Then you should give them a try. He smiled, pointing at the heavenly drive hanging around Raon's waist. I have a pretty good insight on swords, as you already know. I didn't know that. Anyway. I'll watch, so try drawing your swords. Raon shook his head, but Runan immediately drew her sword. She apparently wanted to brag about her sword. Cling. The silver blade gleamed under the golden-yellow moonlight, lighting the dim training ground. Ooh. Rimmer's eyes widened after examining Runan's sword from top to bottom. It has the sharpness and coldness befitting a sword made from cold blood. It's nicely made. He admired it, checking Runan's sword from different angles. It looks like it was made by the current chief of Mirtan village. The pattern is exactly to his liking. Apparently, he wasn't lying about his insight on the swords, as he instantly knew the maker. What's the sword's name? Snowflower. With such a nice name and perfect balance, it should match perfectly with your swordsmanship and aura. Congratulations on getting a nice sword. Rimmer smiled gently, looking at the flower pattern at the center of the blade. Thank you. Runan hugged Snowflower tightly, satisfied with Rimmer's compliment. It's your turn now. Rimmer looked at Raon, gesturing with his hand to urge him to draw his sword. All right. Raon drew Heavenly Drive. A dignified energy and frightening sharpness came from the painfully beautiful blade all at once. Ha! The smile disappeared from Rimmer's face. His eyes were trembling violently, revealing that he didn't expect it to be so good. That old man created another monster. Rimmer swallowed nervously, moving down the platform. He groaned in bewilderment and glared at Heavenly Drive. With the shape of a versatile sword, it has extreme sharpness and dignity. It was a strange power, surpassing the aura amplification ability it has. He shook his head, saying that he hadn't seen a sword of that caliber in a long time. Even for you, this sword is too good for a swordsman in his first year. What's the name? Heavenly Drive. A sword that leads the heavens. Honestly, I think it's one of the 10 best swords I've seen so far. Although Rimmer was nothing but a lazy gambling addict now, he used to be an indomitable swordsman that had gone through countless battlefields. What he said was pretty much the best compliment he could get. It looks like you both managed to get swords that match you. Congratulations. Rimmer applauded for them, looking back and forth between Raon and Runan. Try using them now. Using them? As Raon was about to sheath Heavenly Drive, Rimmer shook his head. An excellent sword that can amplify aura is called an energy sword, and your swords are both energy swords. Since I'm sure you aren't used to the effect yet, you should try using it there. He pointed his finger at the center of the training ground, telling them to move there. Raon and Runan went to the center, following his gesture. Energy swords have something called a path. Just like the mana circuit, it has a line where the aura can pass through, and the aura gets amplified before coming out if you insert your aura through that line. You should try it. Yes. Runan gave a big nod, then focused her aura on Snowflower. Frost fluttered like pollen on the silver blade, and her pressure was greatly amplified. Wow! Surprised by her own pressure, a glittering light appeared in her hazy eyes. I knew you would be good at this. Although it consumes a lot of aura, you should be able to use more powerful techniques. You should train to precisely check how much power you can use. Rimmer nodded at Runan before looking at Raon. Why aren't you doing anything? I don't have anything like that. What? I don't have anything similar to the mana circuit in the sword. That can't be true, since that's such a powerful sword. It's true. I just need to hold the sword for it to amplify my energy. Raon shrugged his shoulders. He wasn't lying. He just needed to use his aura while grabbing the Heavenly Drive for his energy to be amplified. Since the amplification happened immediately, it didn't have the side effect of increasing his aura consumption either. Ha! Ha! Rimmer's eyes widened in confusion. Really? Really? Raon nodded, inserting his aura into Heavenly Drive. The clear flame of the 10,000 Flames cultivation flared up to engulf the blade. The size and heat were a lot more intense than before. That's insane. He faltered as he walked towards him in bewilderment. Can I try holding it? Yes. Thank you. I'll just take a look. Ah, it's hot. The moment Rimmer tried to grab Heavenly Drive, flame burst from the hilt. Does it even recognize its owner? He frowned, pulling his hand back after almost touching that heat. No way, does it actually have an ego? No, it doesn't. Raon shook his head with a sour expression. According to the blacksmith, the instinct inside the golden shard is chasing after my aura. Rather than an ego, it seems to have an instinct that desires its master's aura. You were aware of that all along. I didn't expect it to start breathing fire, since the blacksmith could hold it at least. It was true. It was the first time fire had come out of it just because someone other than its master tried to grab it. Huh, that's so weird. Rimmer licked his lips, looking at the Heavenly Drive that Raon was holding. He could force it to accept his touch by using aura, but he was probably not doing that because it felt troublesome. It looks like the sword's aura amplification ability is also outstanding. Try making the strongest aura thread with it. Aura thread was one of martial arts' special techniques, consisting of surrounding a blade with a bundle of thinly sliced aura blades. It was far weaker than astral energy, but it was still stronger than the aura blade. Understood. Raon imbued Heavenly Drive with the full power of the 10,000 Flames cultivation. Whir! The clear resonance of the sword reverberated throughout the dark training ground, and a clear aura of fire surged along the blade. The way the blade radiated heat on its own resembled the sun, and the aura almost looked like it had materialized. That's insane. Rimmer's lips trembled as he watched the raging blade. Are you telling me this is an aura thread? It's pretty much an astral blade at this point. Raon narrowed his eyes, observing the materializing fire on the blade. It was his first time putting as much aura in as he could, and he didn't expect the sword to amplify the energy to that extent. Stay still for a moment. Rimmer drew his sword from his waist. The green aura of the wind gathered to fill the blade. Just like the energy on Raon's sword, Rimmer's had also far surpassed aura thread. I'll try attacking from the front, so block it. Understood. Raon nodded. Rimmer struck downward. Cling. Raon swung Heavenly Drive up towards the light wind strike. Wham! The head-on clash between the red blade and the green blade created a tremendous storm of heat, which spread throughout the training ground. Whoosh! Inside the heat, which wasn't dissipating easily, Raon and Rimmer were looking at each other's swords. That old man created one nasty sword. Rimmer admired Raon's sword, looking where the fire's intensity had slightly decreased. With this level, it should even be able to block astral energy a few times. How the hell is a sword? No, wait. He raised his hand, looking at the sword in bewilderment. The sword isn't the only thing that's great. Did you actually become even stronger? It just happened. How did you get even stronger when all you did was make a sword? What did you even do? I just slayed a turtle and helped them forge the sword. Turtle? You killed a turtle? Rimmer kept blankly murmuring the word turtle in confusion. Ha! He shook his head, looking at the fire aura burning from Heavenly Drive and Raon's dignified eyes. What am I even raising right now? A monster met another monster. Rushing Mountain's underground grotto could pretty much be called House Robert's darkness. The grotto, which used to contain 108 children, only had 30 people remaining now. However, the children's eyes had turned a spiteful red, and their breath was full of murderous intent. Nice. Nice. Darius Robert drank his wine, enjoying the children's murderous intent as a side dish. My lord. The large, masked man that had 3 lines drawn on his chest knelt in front of him and bowed. The children have been filtered in accordance with your orders. We can say that there's only the tenacious ones left now. How did you decrease their numbers? I placed 3 of them in a room where only one of them could come out. It's pretty much a small pot of curse poison. Curse poison was a shamanism technique consisting of placing countless insects inside a pot, then opening the lid after a long time to create a single insect that had the most potent poison. After their failure with Raon, Robert's shadow was using an even more extreme method to raise the children. Curse poison, huh? That's a nice idea you had. Thank you. The masked man slammed his head on the ground at Dara's compliment. I like their eyes. His mouth curved into a smile at the sight of the murderous intent in the children's eyes. How are they doing with their education? They are doing better than any other group so far. The fast ones have already reached the instructor's level in assassination techniques. They need to shed blood in order to awaken their instinct, after all. Use the same method for the next group as well. Yes. The masked man's voice became louder at the compliment. We even have 3 children that are expected to grow beyond Raon's level. Beyond Raon's level. Darius took off his black leather glove, raising his hand to look at the back of it. The blade scar that still hadn't faded away revealed its pitch-black hole in the dim lighting. So, you are saying that those 3 children are capable of doing this, right? His pressure became frighteningly sharp, overwhelming the entire underground grotto. And no, that's... The masked man bit his lip. He only said that because he was asked to raise assassins that could catch up to Raon, yet Robert was angry at him instead. I guess they wouldn't. After all, he had the best achievements ever among the shadows as an assassin, and he even managed to leave a scar on me. They might not be able to reach his level in terms of murderous intent, but we can teach them to surpass him in terms of assassination technique, at least. I see. Yes. Please trust me. I see. Darius stood up with a cold smile. It was as he was about to return that it happened. Drip. A drop of frighteningly red blood dropped down from the scar on the back of his hand. The pure white sword hanging around his waist let out a small cry, as if it were baring its fangs against someone. The masked man stepped back with trembling hands, confused by the phenomenon he'd never seen before. Igio. Ah, yes. Were there any reports from the shadows that went to investigate the north? There was an abnormality, but since it's not organized yet, I was planning to report to the head butler after more information was gathered. Abnormality? Darius slightly tilted his head, urging him to say it. It's news about the return of Rimmer, who used to be called Sieghart's Sword of Light. I'm not sure about the exact name of the organization, but he apparently became a squad leader. I don't need something unnecessary like that. A bird with a broken wing can't fly ever again. Is there anything about that boy named Raon in Glen? There's nothing special yet. That Raon boy apparently wasn't anything special, despite the rumors. He shook off the blood flowing from his hand, letting it soak into the ground, and looked at his still resonating sword. The day is nigh. Darius' frightening eyes became serious as he raised his head. I don't need reports about someone insignificant like Rimmer, so focus on investigating Glenn and the direct lineage instead. Raon shook off Rimmer, who was asking him to lend him money because he taught him about the energy sword, and returned to the annex building. The annex building was full of the delicious smell of food. They apparently already heard the news of Raon's return. Wrath inhaled deeply until his belly was completely swollen, then groaned in excitement. This is the fragrance. The King of Essence has been waiting for today ever since he missed the Uten roasted pig. He floated to follow the smell in the air like a puppy. Welcome back. Young master. How was the journey? Sylvia and the maids came out from the kitchen and smiled. I'm back. Is that the sword? Sylvia's eyes were shining as she looked at Heavenly Drive, which was hanging around his waist. She looked like she wanted to see it right away as she licked her lips. I happened to get something too good for me. Raon smiled, tapping on the scabbard. Is it that good? Show me later then, once everyone has gathered. Let's eat for now. She waved her hand to urge him to wash himself. Why are you still standing there like an idiot? Wrath kept hitting his shoulder. Wash yourself already, then run to the dining room. The King of Essence can't wait anymore. Alright, alright. Raon pushed Wrath back as he kept beating on him like a drum, washing his face before going to the kitchen. The maids were sitting inside the dining room, which had become even bigger, and various foods were displayed on the table. Starting from the stew and stir-fried chicken that he usually enjoyed, there was also a lot of food that he'd never seen before. Raon. Eat that thing over there that looks like a roasted pig. Quick. I haven't even sat down yet. Wrath had apparently already lost his mind, as he was urging him to eat when he hadn't even finished sitting down. Raon sighed, sitting down. This is a huge feast. Today is the day you got your first personal sword. We have to celebrate this occasion. Sylvia extended her arms to point at the food and smiled gently. Helen and Yua made most of the food again today. It feels like I'm going to die from eating too much because they talk about food and keep making delicious meals every time they meet. She has many ideas, and they are all useful on top of being numerous. I'm sure that Yua would succeed greatly if she became a chef instead of a singer. He. Upon hearing Helen and Sylvia's praise, Yua grabbed her twin tails to hide her face in embarrassment. Yua, can you explain today's main dish to me? Yes. The roasted pig at the center over there has had its skin deep-fried in oil, and the meat boiled to create a crunchy and soft texture at the same time. Since we have salt and sauces, you can choose one to fit your taste. The stew next to it is made with ground pineapple and meat, mixed with beef. Yua explained the food she made one by one. It was mostly made from the ingredients he usually consumed. Let's start eating before it gets cold. Thank you for the treat. Raon just moved his lips to pretend to say the same thing as the maids, then took up his spoon. Eat the roasted pig first. The way the skin is fried in a crispy manner reminds the King of Essence of the Uten roasted pig that he couldn't eat. I'm going to warm my stomach with soup and stew first. You idiot! You don't know anything about delicacies. You have to eat the most delicious thing first. Since I'm an idiot, I'm only going to eat soup and stew today. Raon frowned, filling his personal bowl with stew. He started to vigorously devour the stew, as if he were seriously planning to fill his stomach with nothing but stew. Wait. Please wait. Wrath had turned even more pale than when he was angry as he grabbed Raon's wrist. The King of Essence. The King of Essence? The King of Essence is SS. S. Sleepy. Then go ahead and sleep. Kua. The King of Essence is sorry. Please eat the roasted pig over there first. He rubbed his hands to beg, saying that he hadn't eaten anything delicious for a while. That's how you should have been from the beginning. Raon shook his hand to move back, and slightly dipped the thick roasted pig into salt before putting it in his mouth. Oh! He exclaimed immediately. The exterior was crunchy, and the inside was moist. The soft flavor of butter filled his mouth after that. Even though he usually didn't care about delicacies, he wanted to keep eating more. Ha! Wrath fainted while standing, his mouth trembling. He was clearly impressed by the roasted pig. G-God is here. The King of Essence just met the Demon God. What are you doing right now? Keep eating more so that the King of Essence can say his greetings to the Demon God. He urged him to continue, saying nonsensical things. He's getting worse and worse. Raon frowned slightly, then dipped the roasted pig into the sauce before eating. This is also nice. The mixture between the spicy sauce and the roasted pig with moist insides and a crunchy outside created another taste. He personally preferred the sauce. The sauce is nice, but the King of Essence prefers the salt with its natural flavor. I prefer sauce. This is why you are a fool. The natural taste is what you need to savor in food. I don't want to eat anymore. Arg, King of Essence. Raon enjoyed the time he spent with everyone while arguing with Wrath. He confirmed once again that he felt most comfortable in that place. Ahem, the King of Essence is satisfied. Wrath tapped his swollen belly in satisfaction. Once the King of Essence obtains a body, he will make sure to take care of that pineapple girl and the ice cream girl. He smiled pleasantly while looking at Yua. We had beef in front of the door once again today. Tell Martha later that I'm thankful for her. Sylvia pointed at the beef stew, wiping her mouth. Whom? The beef girl came to visit? Rath's jaw dropped, looking back and forth between the delicious beef skewers and beef stew. It can't be helped. I'll also take care of the beef girl. The King of Essence will bring the 3 maids with him to the end of the world. He murmured that he would save the 3 of them at all costs, as if he were doing them a favor. Fuck off. That was what he wanted to say, but he stopped himself from saying it because Rath might start rampaging again if he did. Let's look at Raon's sword now. The maid's eyes were focused at Raon's waist at Sylvia's signal. It's a bit embarrassing if you stare at me like that. Raon slowly stood up and drew Heavenly Drive. The straight blade reflected the orange lighting of the dining room, gleaming with a different kind of beauty. Whoa! It's cool. Congratulations, young master. The maids applauded and cheered, saying that the sword looked cool. The sword looks more amazing than I thought. Sylvia must have realized how valuable Heavenly Drive was, as her red eyes were reflecting her amazement. Yes. Following Helen's call, Yua walked up to him and handed over a white box. When Raon tried opening it, there was an embroidery thread inside, golden and red lines connected to it. We made this together. The number of lines connected to the embroidery thread was the same as the number of people in the dining room. It looked like they made it 1 per person. Thank you. Raon was slightly embarrassed, scratching his chin for a bit before bowing to everyone. We don't need gratitude, so try wearing it. Yes, I want to see if it suits you. Raon nodded, then attached the embroidery thread to his scabbard. Connecting the embroidery thread that everyone had made to the scabbard, which had the mixture of gold and blackish-red colors, enhanced the rough and noble style. We made it while wishing for you to keep walking your own path in the future. Path? You don't need to think about the house, nor about us. Just walk the path that you believe in. Sylvia approached him and hugged tightly. Although she was now smaller than him, her embrace was still warm. And, as she was about to continue, a knocking sound could be heard from the entrance. Arg! Who is visiting while we are spending a heartwarming time with family? I'll go and check it out. Yua, who was close to the door, ran outside. She returned a moment later, swallowing nervously and clearly flustered. What is it? Who was it? Yua's voice was trembling as she pointed at the entrance. He said he came from the Central Martial Palace.